In the weeks and days leading up to the inauguration, scenes like this one have continued to play out on the riverbanks of Eagle Pass's Shelby Park.
¿De dónde vienen? ¿De dónde vienen? ¿Viene de Venezuela?
Viene jodido el pie, se cayó del tren.
¿Qué le pasó a su pie?
Se cayó el tren, se lo mochó.
¿Cuándo?
Ya el 19 de noviembre.
Ajá.
Tengo la herida viva y necesito ya...
Está sangrando. Está sangrando, lo estamos ayudando porque...
The men were sent north along the river, where they were told U.S. Border Patrol agents would arrest them for crossing into the U.S. illegally. Here, inside Shelby Park, Texas DPS troopers and National Guard members aren't authorized to arrest or to process any migrant for crossing illegally. That is the job of a federal immigration authority officer.
Why did this become sort of ground zero for this debate? this little park here.
The reason is because, for one, it's very ideal for anybody to cross here. The river at times is low. There's less violence across the border in Mexico and less resistance at the time before we had all this infrastructure here.
Christopher Olivares is a lieutenant with the Texas Department of Public Safety and a spokesman for Operation Lone Star, the statewide operation providing additional enforcement along more than 1,200 miles of the state's border with Mexico. It's an effort supplemented by a new National Guard base that was recently built outside of town. At its peak, Lieutenant Olivares says this area alone was seeing around 5,000 illegal border crossings daily. But he credits Operation Lone Star with an 86% drop in traffic.
You do believe that having President Trump come into the office now is going to make the job of a DPS trooper on the border easier?
It is. I think it's also going to make it more efficient. Right now that we have support now at the federal level, something that we've been wanting for the last 4 years, right? I think it's going to be very helpful to us, also helpful to the governor and what he's been able to do with Operation Lone Star. It's been very challenging over the last 4 years. You think about when we started Operation Lone Star, all the legal battles, the lawsuits, the criticism.
Last year, the ACLU released a critical report saying the state has spent more than $11 billion on Operation Lone Star and that it's led to racial profiling and primarily arresting people accused of low-level offenses like trespassing. The ACLU says the program has overwhelmingly prosecuted U.S. citizens, not migrants, for more serious charges like drug-related offenses, human smuggling, and weapons charges. And some critics who live in the area say they just want the heavy law enforcement presence to go away.
I mean, it's just so difficult that outsiders came into our community and changed the tone of how we live.
Jesse Fuentes sued unsuccessfully to have the controversial border buoys removed.
It's affecting our culture, it's affecting our history, it's affecting the way we live our day-to-day life.
As far as Operation Lone Star, do you see a day in which that's just going to go away?
You know, I'm sure at some point it will, but when to say that is, of course, that's to be determined.
In nearby rural Kinney County, there's no denying who their sheriff thinks will help with their challenges.
I'm looking at whoever's going to be the best for the country. And what we had, or what we currently have, wasn't doing what we felt needed to be done in this part of the country.
Sheriff Brad Coe showed us around town and explained how he and only 6 other full-time deputies were tasked with preventing crimes related to illegal immigration.
Pick a spot. I mean, we had them bail out of town. We had them run into literally the car ran into one of the houses of the projects.
He says smugglers chose his county because there was more open border here compared to neighboring Eagle Pass and Del Rio.
What is your hope for the county? What is your hope for the border? I mean, in a perfect world, what should this look and feel like?
What I'm hoping for is we don't have to sound the alarm every time something's coming through here. Kids couldn't go outside and play for a while because of the number of pursuits. Now we can get back to somewhat normal life.
Many along the border agree barriers and physical enforcement helps, but they're all still wondering when real policy change will come from Washington. It's something I asked Texas Governor Greg Abbott about during a border news conference.
A lot of these efforts and renewed efforts seem to be physical, boots-on-the-ground efforts. At what point do you think, in your role as governor, you can help affect actual policy out of Washington that comes in the way of law from the highest order?
What I want to ensure we deliver is making sure that we do accomplish one task first, and that is to stop illegal immigration into the United States, and my job is to stop it into the state of Texas. After we accomplish that goal, then we can move on to other goals. and it will be up to the Trump administration and those serving in Washington, D.C. to figure out a pathway forward.
In the meantime, law enforcement officials like Lieutenant Olivares and Sheriff Coe say they'll continue their work with a commander-in-chief they believe will be friendly to their cause. Their hope is illegal crossings like these are eliminated altogether.
Okay? Okay, hasta luego. Buena suerte. Que Dios los bendiga.
Along the border in Eagle Pass, Ken Molestina, CBS News, Texas. In a section of Eagle Pass's Shelby Park, a place that's become the epicenter of the state's efforts to crack down on border security, these crosses are hard to miss. In fact, your attention is almost immediately drawn to them.
This year, there are about 560 on there. Last year, we had about 100 more than that.
Dan McQuistion says he was asked to make these crosses to represent the migrants who've died here trying to cross the border.
You know, the drownings, dying in the heat.
McQuistion volunteers with Mission Border Hope. It's a nonprofit affiliated with the Eagle Pass First United Methodist Church.
It's a place for people to express their compassion for immigrants and poor people.
We're also involved with different areas in the community.
Pastor Javier Leiva says this work is part of his mission.
Receive them, you know, if they're hungry, feed them.
It isn't lost on him that the past few years have brought Eagle Pass national attention as the immigration debate has raged. And Pastor Leiva expects even more changes with a new administration.
Whatever else happens, we still have to trust God and do what we were called to do.
When you think about the immigration debate and everything that's happening here in border towns like Eagle Pass, what do you think the role of the faith community is in all of that?
Well, the Word of God says, welcome the stranger, because we were once strangers.
We took the drive about 50 miles up the border to Del Rio, another border town also enthralled in the immigration debate. At the Baruch Hashem Assembly, a Messianic synagogue in Del Rio, we found not all members of the faith community agree.
I'm not going to call them migrants. The reason I don't call them migrants is because, working with the Border Patrol, migrants are people that come over here legally. They attempt a pathway to citizenship, the legal route. According to USC 1325, illegal entry is by an alien, right? It's an illegal alien.
Rabbi Manny Rodriguez spent 2 decades enforcing U.S. border laws as a Border Patrol agent before retiring when President Joe Biden took office in 2021. As a supporter of incoming President Trump, he's excited to see changes to immigration enforcement.
Because here on the border, it's kind of like, in Spanish, we kind of say ni modo. It is what it is. It is what it is, right? But that kind of changed a little bit with this last election. I tell you, I haven't seen so many Republican signs in my life since I've been here.
He says at least part of the reason previously blue regions flipped red has to do with immigration.
We're not the only country in the world that has immigration laws. When you read through scriptures, every major city, Jerusalem, Jericho, they all have their walls. They all have their borders.
And yet, Rabbi, there are people who will hear your words and say that's not the way a man of faith should be talking about immigrants and those looking for a better life. They'll say that's inhumane the way he talks about them. What do you say to them?
Well, I say, they're entitled to their opinion. Everybody's entitled to their opinion, but I'd have to also refer to history.
We are for border security, okay? We want that. That's not a question, okay? But it's to treat the immigrants with dignity because they're people, okay? And many times, unfortunately, they're treated like animals, like nobodies. But we're all created equal under God.
Do you think there is an immigration problem, though? Do you agree with that?
I don't know if it's a problem because it's always been. This is not new.
One thing both Pastor Leiva and Rabbi Rodriguez have in common, they'd like to see an end to the suffering of the migrants who've made this sometimes deadly journey into the U.S., the dangerous journey that's illustrated by these crosses.
I spent hours and hours sanding and painting and cutting these crosses.
And it becomes
emotional.
And you do.
It becomes emotional because you think about what you're involved in.
In Eagle Pass, Ken Molestina, CBS News, Texas.
Eagle Pass is not the largest border town here in Texas. However, since the debate started about illegal immigration and border security, it has become the center focus of this debate. So we wanted to come back here yet again and talk to folks and see how they're feeling about what is in their future with a new presidential administration, namely the Trump administration.
In this town, with just over 23,000 residents, political opinions are just as bold as the brisket nachos at their most popular barbecue joint, Choches. It's where we met up with two of the town's most vocal advocates in the debate over immigration and border security, Jesse Fuentes and America Garcia Graywall.
The promise right now seems to be more patrols, more security, a shutdown of the border, mass deportations. How is that going to continue to affect your town?
That's why I'm saying the worst is yet to be seen, because what's coming is ugly. And we tried to prepare people for this.
Fuentes is the man behind the unsuccessful lawsuit to remove the controversial border buoys from a small stretch of the Rio Grande, which he claims have disturbed the river and his kayak business. Along with Garcia Graywall, they both have stood up against the heavy military and law enforcement presence that has spurred over the past few years.
You think you'll ever go back to whatever it was like
I have
before
hope.
that?
What this is the greatest theft of tax dollars the state of Texas has ever seen, and soon what the United States has ever seen.
Neither are looking forward to President Trump and Governor Abbott's plans to continue to secure the border.
They see militarization as something positive, but when you have a base to the east, two to the north, one to the south, and then Shelby Park taken over, we're militarized.
While they may not like it, plenty others along this border region do. That might explain why this county, like so many others along the border, flipped, voting red for Donald Trump, something that hasn't happened in recent memory.
For the first time in history of Maverick County, this county went red.
Another county that flipped was nearby Valverde County, home to Del Rio, yet another border town dealing with unprecedented waves of illegal immigration. So we headed there next. It's where I met gun shop owner Gary Humphreys.
Been here in Del Rio for 52 years on the border, and it's not tough doing it, but you got to mind your P's and Q's in the gun business.
He says he voted on a split ticket, Democrats for local leaders, but he wanted Donald Trump, a Republican, in the White House.
Trump getting in there, he's going to bring back all of, remain in Mexico and all of, says he is. I'm sure he'll do that.
And you're looking forward to all of that?
Oh yeah, it's already changed. I mean, since he's been making statements.
For Humphreys, the switch from blue to red in his home county isn't just tied into promises to secure the border, but by the perception that their economy could also one day return to a bustling one, instead of the sleepy business town that some say it's fallen into.
Is that, you think, the main reason why people decided to vote for him? Because they thought that a Trump presidency means more life, more economy back down here on the border?
I do see people voting for him because of that reason, for sure.
Carla Fernandez is a restaurant supply rep in town who says while she didn't vote for Trump, she understands why so many others may believe Trump could improve their economy.
Right now we're at the point where let's just see what happens, we're still gonna keep living, keep working hard, and just be ready for what's to come.
Back in Eagle Pass, Jose Perez, the owner of Doobie's, a legal cannabis dispensary store, explained why he voted red for the first time ever.
My vehicle was at the checkpoint and had been still out on my driveway, and I was not aware,
By an undocumented immigrant?
Yes.
By somebody who crossed
Yes,
illegally?
sir. Somebody out of Honduras.
Stole your car?
Stole my car.
For immigrant activists, there seems to be a sentiment that while Trump's heavier-handed approach to border security is coming, what is really missing here is effective change in immigration policy.
And if we are having people come into the United States, we're depending on them for our economy, for our jobs, for the food that we eat, for our hospitals, and every single sector of industry, we deserve to protect them as well.
We will resist. We are prepared. And, resistance is important. It's always been in our history. This is nuestra gente, our people. The people of brown skin have always stood up. And I guarantee you, whatever they throw at us, we're going to be there.
Along the southern Texas border, Ken Molestina, CBS News, Texas.